It's the day before the day before. The Seahawks will soon be battling the 49ers at Lumen Field in the 2025 season opener. Is there a chance that a few players that were expected to suit up won't be suiting up for the Seahawks? We'll be diving into the latest injury reports for both teams coming up here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Glad to be joined here on our first regular season Blue Friday episode by my co-host Nick Lee. And a special thanks to all the 12s out there, whether you're in nearby Cheney, Washington, or down in Jacksonville, Florida. Thank you as always for being an everydayer and making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. Seahawks and 49ers gearing up for a week one clash at Lumen Field. We've got keys to victory for the Seahawks, picks to click, final predictions, and much more coming your way. So without further ado, let's get to it. Now for your lead story here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. It's week one. There haven't been any games in the regular season yet. So you would expect that teams are going to be going into week one feeling pretty good and being pretty healthy. But if you look at the Seahawks and 49ers injury reports coming out of Thursday, you might think it's week 15, the way that things are setting up right now, particularly for the 49ers. But the Seahawks having a few new additions to their injury report. And anytime that happens Thursday or Friday, that leaves you some pause about the availability of certain players. And these are not just guys on the Seahawks roster, Nick. We're talking about some significant starters. If you look at Thursday's report, Woolen out with an illness, Anthony Bradford out with a back injury, Derek Young downgraded from being limited on Wednesday to being out with a hamstring injury. On Thursday, you've still got Uchenna Nwosu, Jake Bobo, and Cody White as limited participants. But if you're looking for the good news, Tyrese Knight isn't even on the injury report, so he should be good for Sunday. And Torrey Horton's been a full participant all week, coming off an ankle injury. So there's positives, but some of these new names being added. And anytime I see a 330-pound offensive lineman dealing with a back issue, that always leaves me a little bit to pause heading towards the game in the case of Anthony Bradford here.
Yeah, I mean, certainly that doesn't bode well because we've already had heavy discussions about the situation at right guard, some question marks surrounding Anthony Bradford, and all of a sudden this back issue pops up. And then if you look at, I know there's a few websites for depth chart. One actually has Jalen Sindell as technically the backup guard on that spot, but the Our Lads one is blank behind him, meaning they really would be stretched thin and have to move guys around. If Anthony Bradford can't go, I imagine it'd be Bryce Cabledew would be my guess. But unless they want to shift things around and make it be somebody else.
I think with what McDonald said the other day, that it would be Oluwatimi playing center and then Sundell would go to guard.
Okay.
First alternative, but then Cabledew, do you call up Lamea from the practice squad?
Right.
They might have to out of necessity. And this is worst case scenario. Anthony Bradford may very well practice today. We don't know yet. We haven't gotten that report yet. But anytime you have a back injury, Nick, that crops up at this late in the week, that is something that I think you would at least have to be somewhat alarmed by.
Definitely. And like you said, a bigger guy who, that back is under a lot of duress during the football season, a football game. So yeah, that's something. I think that's the biggest one to monitor. Of course, the good news, Tyrese Knight, like you mentioned, Torrey Horton, those two good to go. Because I didn't pick him, but I was very tempted to pick Torrey Horton as a sneaky, pick to click, as a guy that maybe the Niners forget about, and then he makes a couple big plays. I didn't quite go there, but I was tempted to. And Jake Bobo, of course, that big hit he took in the preseason. Hopefully that he can get back all the way. Woolen with an illness. Hopefully it's one of those where they can just pump him full of airborne and some vitamin C and get out there. Maybe if this was game day, he's out there and playing sick, but maybe we get a flu game out of Requel, and that's always the low-hanging fruit. He'll get like 2 picks or something. And so with the Seahawks side, yeah, the one to watch for certain is Anthony Bradford, because like you said, that could make the offensive line kind of need to shuffle the pieces a little bit. And then on the Niners side, a guy who my brother's fantasy football name in our league, the name is Christian McCaffrey. That's his fantasy name. And lo and behold, here he is with a calf injury popping up right before, I think it was right before kickoff of the Eagles-Cowboys yesterday that some reports came in. Like, wow, here we go again. And then last year we were talking before the show, like, yeah, it's probably out of abundance of caution. He's probably still okay. He's their best player. Treat him with kid gloves. All of a sudden, I don't know how many games he played last year, but all of a sudden he's missing half the year, and really just had a kind of disastrous 2024, Christian McCaffrey. And of course, those who drafted him in fantasy football had a disastrous 2024 because of that. So, and for that reason, I didn't touch him with a 10-foot pole in fantasy drafts, because things like this is the question mark is he going to play? My hunch, or like, I'm going to operate under the assumption this is truly out of an abundance of caution, and we probably will see 23 suit up and face the Seahawks in week 1. Juwan Jennings, I know he just got paid. He's had some injuries as well. So that would be 2 fairly decent. CMC is definitely more than fairly decent, but 2 big parts of their offense that maybe they were counting on week 1, all of a sudden dinged up, and certainly advantage Seahawks if one or both of them don't suit up.
Yeah, and Dominic Pooney is still limited in practice with a knee issue that he's been playing through. So I would expect right now, it's week 1, but I think all 3 of those guys are in line. Jennings is probably the guy that I'm most optimistic is going to be playing based on what he has said. McCaffrey, I really expect all 3 of these guys to be on the field for the 49ers. And they've had some positive injury developments. Rookie CJ West, the defensive tackle out of Indiana, full participant. Jason Pinnock, who's going to be one of their safeties. They signed him from the Giants. He's got a heel issue, but he was a full participant. First-round pick, Michael Williams. His knee has been bugging him, but he is a full participant. Their starting guard, Ben Barch, with an elbow. I mean, this is a really long injury report for week 1, but the 49ers have a lot of guys that are trending in the right direction that have been full participants. The big question marks now, obviously, Christian McCaffrey, with him being this late crop up, it's very similar to Anthony Bradford in the sense you're wondering this late, is he going to be ready for Sunday? Yetur Gross-Matos is trying to get through a knee injury. If he isn't able to play, they're already kind of thin at the edge position. So both these teams, for it being week 1, Seattle's got pretty much their entire receiving core on the injury report right now, away from Jackson Smith and Jigba and Cooper Kupp. And again, the good news is Torrey Horton right now, he's been a full participant this week. But I would think Cody White, with shoulder issue, he should be good to go. Jake Bobo, we're hoping to see that he has passed through the concussion protocol. I have a hunch he's going to be a full participant in today's practice. I think he's going to be ready for Sunday. And we'll see what happens with Derek Young. Hamstring injuries can be kind of touchy, and they could just be doing, airing caution with him right now. Maybe he's ready for Sunday, but you might be seeing Tyrone Broden or one of those guys coming up this week off the practice squad with the number of receivers that the Seahawks have on there. But to me, the biggest question marks, it's all about Anthony Bradford with that back. And I'm curious about Uchenna Nwosu because I've been hearing mixed things. I have not been at the facility for the last couple of weeks. I was there for pretty much the entirety of training camp, but I have not been at the facility the last few weeks. But based on what I've heard from people who have been there, it sounds like he is progressing, but that is another one where I'm kind of like, do you really force the issue in week 1? I know it's a big game against your top rival. I'm wondering if that's the right move. I'm very curious to see whether Nwosu is deemed ready to go for this game or not, or do the Seahawks just decide, look, maybe he is ready, but we're going to wait till next week. I am very curious to see what that decision looks like, but those to me are the 2 big names. I'm not worried about Woolen. It's an illness. I think he'll be ready for Sunday, but those other 2 names, Bradford and Nwosu, for different reasons, those are the ones I'm really monitoring today on the injury report and looking towards Sunday.
Yeah, and I had one of my best friends is in Connecticut, big Seahawks fan who's moved out there, and he's texting me, man, I'm nervous about this game. And, week 1, it feels weird to be all of a sudden, this is a big game. And yeah, honestly, this is about as big as a week 1 game you can have against the 49ers, a team that, you know is going to be standing directly in your way if you have an NFC West, chances of winning the NFC West. You get them at home, or based on reports, home with some things we're hearing. I think this unfortunately might be a game where maybe you turn it up a couple notches for, maybe don't want to risk long-term injury, but yeah, you'd like to see those guys compete and come back, because this is about as big of a week one game as you can find for the Seahawks.
When we come back, we've got our first game plan of the 2025 season. We're going to be getting some keys to victory, devising a game plan for the Seahawks to get off to a fast start and go 1-0 against the 49ers on Sunday. Don't go away. You're listening to the Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. This episode is brought your way by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football-backed Prize Picks, the simplest and fastest way to get in the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. I've been playing Prize Picks lately, and it's such a fun way to stay locked in for the football season. It's quick, easy, and honestly my favorite way to follow along with football. I love checking projections like Josh Allen for more or less than 270 passing yards, or Saquon Barkley for more or less than 1 rushing touchdown. This week's max discounts include on the 7th, Lamar Jackson, 0.5 passing yards. On the 14th, Travis Kelce, 0.5 receiving yards. And there's plenty of others as well. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's the code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow what moves them every time they drive, and that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, and performance to deliver a driving experience that feels alive in every detail. As an athlete focuses on every detail, Mazda does the same. From metallic accents to hand-stitched Napa leather, you can feel it the moment you get behind the wheel. The smooth handling, intuitive controls, and standard all-wheel drive at every crossover SUV. Whether it's a quick drive to practice or a weekend road trip, Mazda makes even everyday drives feel special. It's the small details that make the big plays. And just like that, there's more to every player. There's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Welcome back to the Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. Glad to be joined by my co-host, Nick Lee. And a special thanks to all of the everydayers out there. Thank you to the 12s for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. The Seahawks and 49ers gearing up for a week one clash at Lumen Field. We'll see if it feels like home field advantage for the Seahawks. All these different reports out there about seas of red. The Seahawks got to win back that home field advantage. When you don't win at home, it's hard to get home fans to want to show up. So this is a big game, obviously, starting the season off right, looking to make a statement in the NFC West. Let's talk keys to victory, devising a game plan for the Seahawks to win this game. And it's always tricky when you talk about week one because you don't have any past regular season games with the current rosters, particularly this 49ers team that's had so much turnover on both sides of the ball compared to a year ago. So there's going to be a feeling out period, and adapting, adjusting is going to be crucial in this season opener as much as any season opener. But Nick, let's start on the offensive side of the football and what you're going to be looking for the Seahawks to accomplish this week if they want to get the victory over their hated rivals from the Bay.
I really think the deciding matchup is the Seahawks offensive line versus the 49ers defensive line. We're anxious to see how improved perhaps the offensive line is for Seattle, and hopefully they're not down already one of the starters in week one. And the defensive line for the 49ers, also a bit new look. You got the rookie Michael Williams we talked about in the opener, and CJ West. And that goes down to allowing 10 or fewer pressures on Sam Darnold. And because this is really opening the season with the offensive line, hopefully improved against this defensive line, is like studying all night for an exam, and the first question is like 6 multiple choice. You can select one or all or a combination of all the answers, and there's only one correct answer. And this huge combination of multiple. I mean, it's just like what a way to start the season for this offensive line, to facing a very talented, very well coached Robert Saleh defensive line for the 49ers. So allowing 10 or less pressures, the Seahawks did it 5 times last year, and were 4-1 and 4-0 if it was under 10 pressures. So they're 4-0. Go figure. The Seahawks win games when they keep their quarterback upright and they're not, allowing free rushers. So allowing 10 pressures or less in pass blocking, and then also for me, you got to keep Sam Darnold with that. The complement to that is Sam Darnold. You got a 70% completion at least. He had a career high 66.2% completion percentage last year. 7 games of 70 or better. And for me, I don't need him to throw for 300 yards. I don't even need him to throw for 3 touchdowns. I need him to be efficient, to be smart, and to not give the 49ers extra possessions. So the complementary football there of the offensive line protecting him, Darnold taking care of the football, and optimizing possessions and not giving San Francisco extra ones.
Yeah, those are really good points. I want to go back to the offensive line, and it'd be easy for me to say run for 100 yards or average over 4.3 yards per carry and all those different rushing metrics. What I care about in this game is sustained drives, and that's going to go down to the offensive line being able to control the line of scrimmage against a 49ers defensive line that is going to be playing some rookies. They're going to be playing a lot of new pieces in there. I feel like this is the time to catch the 49ers early in the season. They're trying to break in all these newcomers. But I'm looking at the time of possession, and that doesn't always bear out to be, the biggest stat in terms of how an offense is performing, but it will tell me a couple things. If the Seahawks are able to get 5+ minutes advantage in the time of possession aspect, it's going to tell me a couple things. It's going to tell me, one, that they are having sustained drives. They are getting first downs. They are staying on the field. They're keeping the 49ers offense on the field. And that means to me that the running game is working, that it's at least effective enough that they are able to get drives together. So I'm not going to throw a bunch of rushing stats out there. I'm looking for possessions that are sustained. I'm looking for those physical drives that go 9, 10, 11 plus plays, and you just wear the 49ers defense down. And by second half, you can really start to try to take over this game. I'm looking at that time of possession. To me, that is really important when you look at this contest. And the other thing, if you look back at the last 3 or 4 times these two teams have met at Lumen Field, there's been a couple things that have killed the Seahawks, but one of them has been the inability to score touchdowns in the red zone. They have not been able to finish drives. In fact, there's been a number of times they haven't even gotten a field goal when they've gotten into the red zone. You can't do that against this 49ers team. Even with the changes they've had, that's too well coached to the team. You've got to go finish. I think they need to score at least 2 touchdowns in the red zone. If they can do that, then I'm going to feel a lot better about Seattle's chances of getting the win here. We'll talk defense here in a second. I just want to throw this out here. No more turnovers on special teams. Please, I'm begging you. That has been the other issue at Lumen against the 49ers. I don't know how many points have swung on the scoreboard because of special teams turnovers against the 49ers in these games, but it has just been an unmitigated disaster. Hold on to the football. Don't fumble on kick and punt returns. Don't give free field position deep in your own territory off special teams. That is going to be crucial, and it's just been a major problem for the Seahawks. Let's go to defense now, what they need to do against this 49ers offense to get the win.
Well, for me, it definitely Christian McCaffrey is going to be a big part, but also George Kittle. And we've seen George Kittle kind of kill the Seahawks in the past a little bit, holding him under 50 receiving yards. And because I looked over he has 13 career games against the Seahawks, and he's averaging just over 62 yards per game. And so getting him under 50 yards, and maybe this will be a fun opportunity for a guy like Nick Manwari. Big first test of, all right, out there, go out there, kid, go get him. Here's George Kittle, and one of the better tight ends in football. So for him, it's a few symptoms. It's, he's not getting open over the middle and sustaining drives, because like we said, with the Seahawks, you want them sustaining drives. One of the ways the Niners can extend drives is if Kittle can get loose for a few. So obviously he's going to get his. They're going to target him, less than 50 yards. Let's not make it back-breaking kind of thing. And then just very easy, get sacks, because another symptom of that, if you're getting at least 3 sacks is what I'm hoping for. That means you're putting the Niners in situations where they need to pass. And so, because if they're up by 7-10 points, they're just going to ground and pound, and they're not going to be in a drop back situation with Brock Purdy. So if you're getting those 3 sacks, that means that the Niners are either playing from behind or they're feeling pressed, 2nd and 9, 3rd and 6, where they need to drop back and pass. And then you get those, I love that saying, you have to earn the right to rush the passer. The Seahawks kind of got to be in that mentality with putting themselves in position where the Niners have to pass. Then the Seahawks can kind of flex the depth that they have, hopefully with Uchenna Nwosu healthy with that pass rush.
Yeah, and you want to earn that chance to rush the passer, you got to win on first down. And that has been such a big problem against the 49ers, regardless of whether they've played in Santa Clara or in Seattle the last 4 or 5 years. First down, I think you've got to hold the rushing attack, whether McCaffrey plays or not. You have got to hold the 49ers to under 3 yards per carry on average on first down carries. If you can get the 49ers consistently in a position where it's 2nd and 7 or longer, it opens things up for your pass rush, not only on 3rd down eventually, but a 2nd down. And that has just been a big problem, losing first down. And Mike McDonald's talked about this with Byron Murphy II specifically. You want to give him more chances to rush from the 3 tech? Well, we got to get him more opportunities. And you do that by winning on early downs. So can you control the run game on first down and put the 49ers a little bit more behind the sticks than what they have been in recent memory against the Seahawks? If you are able to do that, that really opens things up for your pass rushers to be able to pin their ears back and then put some pressure on Brock Purdy, because too many times when these teams have played, he has had a pristine pocket because it's just been 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 4 or 2nd and 4, whatever, ideal situations where they could run or pass, and it slowed down the pass rush for the Seahawks. So they've got to win on first down. And I think you got to get a turnover in this game in plus territory. I think that is crucial. The 49ers have done that to the Seahawks regularly at Lumen Field. It's time for some payback. It's time to get a turnover in plus territory. They've had one in recent memory, Jordan Brooks, back in the day, had that pick 6, but they need to get a turnover where they can give the offense quick, early field position, good field position, short field, go get a touchdown off of it, and turn a turnover into 7 points. I think that's going to be pivotal in this football game for the Seahawks to have a chance to get to 1-0 against their rivals. When we come back, Nick, we've got picks to click, our favorite part of the Blue Friday show. We're going to dish out the players we expect big games from. We're calling our shots. That's going to be coming up next here, along with predictions up next on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down for the Seahawks. Tyakata delivered in a big way with a diving interception early in the preseason finale against the Packers. When the pressure was on, out of the gate, he came through. No hesitation, no delay, and plenty of style with a one-handed pick. And if you've been watching preseason game after preseason game, that performance wasn't a fluke. Tyakata is on a streak, and that's why he's on the 53-man roster. And just like Tyakata delivered for the Seahawks, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season. You could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day. Only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. Welcome back to the Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. I'm Corbin Smith. He's Nick Lee. A special thanks to all the 12s tuning in on the day before as we gear up for Week 1 Seahawks 49ers. Our favorite segment on our Friday show. It's time to dish out our picks to click. Nick and I, we're going to be calling our shots, and I want to pat myself on the back one more time. Last year, I won this narrowly over Nick and won the picks to click. I am looking to defend my crown and get off to a fast start here. So, Nick, let's talk offense. Who are the picks to click for the Seahawks? Who is the player that you think you are calling the shot is going to have a big game on Sunday against the 49ers?
Well, despite having a big name in the sport, I feel like he might be a little forgotten in a matchup like this. He's certainly no stranger to carving up NFC West rivals, and that is the receiver Cooper Kupp. And because, the Niners are going to be focused on Jackson Smith and Jigba, who should still have a decent game. But I could see Cooper Kupp in a key situation, the veteran savvy, the route running and all that, coming up with a big catch or two, first down, a 3rd and 7 conversion, or a touchdown where he kind of slips by, and maybe a go-ahead touchdown late, things like that. So I'm not saying he's going to have 9 catches for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's not what I'm saying when I say pick to click. I think he's going to make a few big plays using the veteran, the veteran IQ, the high IQ that he has, and just the familiarity he has facing this 49ers defense, which he does. I'm going to say Cooper Kupp takes advantage of that for a couple big moments as my pick to click.
I'm going to go with one that might surprise some of our listeners, because there's been so much talk about Ken Walker III's health and him being ready for the season opener. But I think this is an opponent, and I think this is an offense. Zach Charbonnet looked very comfortable running the football in Clint Kubiak's offense with his vision, his no-nonsense style, just get downhill when he sees the crease. I think Walker's going to make some plays, but I think Zach Charbonnet is going to be the one that has the big game. I've got him with 85 rushing yards in this game. I think he's going to rip off a couple big runs, and I think he's going to find the end zone twice, 2 rushing touchdowns. I think Seattle, that's going to be a big difference for this team. I think Zach Charbonnet is going to be one of the focal points that leads to Seattle having a really good shot to win this football game. So a lot of you may say, well, Ken Walker III is the lead back. Not so fast, my friend. Lee Corso time here. I just think, especially early in the season, with how the Seahawks have had to be cautious with Ken Walker III in his foot, Zach Charbonnet is going to get a lot of playing time. And I just have a feeling in this game against this opponent, week 1, the way he ran the football in the preseason and in training camp too, I just have a feeling Zach Charbonnet is going to have a really big game. So he is my pick to click on the offensive side of the ball. Let's shift gears now to the defense. And last year, Seattle, the first game against the 49ers, gave up a lot of points, a lot of yards. Then Ernest Jones came in the rematch, held the 49ers in check most of the game, really shut them down, kept them out of the end zone except for one time. This was a much improved defense in general in the second half. And now they get a chance to try to set things right on their home field to open the season. Nick, who's your pick to click on defense? Who are you calling the shot for to have a big game for the Seahawks against the 49ers on Sunday?
Well, you definitely started squeezing the toothpaste out of the tube there. A guy that clearly made a difference the second time around last year against the Niners, Ernest Jones. With how the offense goes for the Niners, it's a big assignment with Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, and company out there. Ernest Jones had a big game, 13 tackles in that win against the 49ers last year, later in the year. Clearly made a difference, and I don't expect anything different here. And so I maybe not 13 tackles, but I think he does come away with flirting with double-digit tackles, maybe a tackle for loss, a big takedown on third and medium, where it turns into a 4th down punt situation for the Niners. So a game like this, with the offense that Shanahan runs, you need to have a competent to good, very good middle linebacker. And I think the Seahawks do have one in Ernest Jones, and I think that'll bear out with this game.
I've been calling this all off season into training camp. I think Devin Witherspoon is going to have a massive third season, and I think he gets off to a fast start. And in fact, I mentioned earlier in the show, one of the keys to victory is getting a turnover in plus territory. Who do I think is going to get that turnover in this game? I think Devin Witherspoon is going to pick off Brock Purdy. And in fact, I went back and watched a few of these games these guys have played, and Witherspoon has been just mere inches a couple times from picking him off. I think he gets his first one. He gets his in this game. I think he's going to get 9 tackles, and I think he's going to get a sack on a blitz. I think they're still going to be utilizing him that way. So I've got a sack, a pick, and 9 tackles for Devin Witherspoon. I like this matchup, especially with them not having Deebo Samuel anymore. I like him going up against Ricky Pearsall, Jennings, and those guys. I just think a big game is coming for Devin Witherspoon in a big season. He's going to get started fast at Lumen Field and position himself to maybe be an all-pro player this year in the secondary for the Seattle Seahawks. All right, predictions time. Now, I've already dished out my score prediction, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about why I'm feeling that way. But Nick, I want to get your sense of where this game is going because it's week one. It's always a crapshoot, especially when you have all the personnel and coaching changes on both sides for the Seahawks and 49ers going into this first matchup against each other week one. So that makes it tough to predict how these games are going to unfold. What are you picturing as the Swami here? What do you see happening on Sunday?
You brought up two good points earlier. One, that it's a week one, so there's going to be a bit of a feeling out process, like the old analogy, the two boxers kind of dancing around the ring, haven't quite laid any big left hooks or haymakers quite yet. And the fact that the Niners have enough different to where playing them week one, I think, is advantage Seahawks because the Seahawks have a little less unknowns, I think, at this point. And so going into the game prediction, I'm not going to mention home field advantage because right now the Seahawks do not have a home field advantage, especially against the 49ers. I hate to say it. And I don't know what it is that the Seahawks fans need to change. I don't know if it's necessarily the fans' fault or anything, but they need to take it back. And maybe this is a game where maybe the Seahawks play a little offended that the crowd is maybe 50-50 and the Seahawks chants break out late in the game finally when the game maybe goes their way. Given the injury concerns with the Niners in a certain few spots, I know the Seahawks also have some with Anthony Bradford. If he can go, and the offensive line is showing improvement with the solid defense that we can hang our hat on, and if the run game can be effective, which we think it can be, we saw the Clint Kubiak kind of in his bag a little bit in that second preseason game against the Chiefs. I'm going to go Seahawks win 23-20, a lower scoring slugfest kind of feeling out game. Maybe even the Seahawks are trailing late and then they get a big touchdown, maybe from Cooper Kupp, like I was saying. But it's going to be a slugfest. It's going to be close. It's not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be maybe fun in certain aspects. But I do hope that at the end of this game, the hopefully more than 50% Seahawks fans drown out any of the green or the red and gold, and the Seahawks chants blast through the TV as they take a knee up 23-20.
All I can think about is the running back on Remember the Titans. Zero fun, sir. That's this. This is going to be one of those games where you're going to want some Pepsid near you. You're going to want to be ready for the excruciating nature of a Seahawks 49ers rivalry, and it's up a notch with all the changes and with it being the first game. There's going to be a lot of discomfort, I think, for both sides.
Cowboys Eagles yesterday, kind of the same thing. That game did not go how Eagles fans thought.
No, and that, week one is just crazy. It always is. And there's always a few games that swing a certain way, and then the team that wins then is terrible the rest of the year. You're hoping that's not the case in this one. I expect both these teams, as long as they stay healthy, are going to be very competitive in the NFC West. But I think the Seahawks win this one by 4 just because I think right now, at least right now, I think this is the more complete team of the two. Roster-wise, I think the 49ers have enough question marks, enough young guys are trying to get up to speed. And you've got the health issues. If Christian McCaffrey doesn't play in this game, I might change my prediction a little bit and make it like a 10-point win because I think that is that kind of a sway if he's not available for them. So we'll see. The injury reports, we'll see what's coming out on Friday. We will have a short on our YouTube channel that I'll be posting as well when we get that details as far as injury reports, who's going to be available, who might not be for the Seahawks. But as always, you can follow me on X and Blue Sky at Corbin Smith NFL. You can follow Nick at Nick Lee 51. And make sure to check out last week Unleashed, the NFC West preview. It's not too late to binge every Locked On division preview. Be the most informed NFL fan in an 8-episode series, bringing you every division winner, breakout star, and Super Bowl contender. Find the link in the description to the Locked On NFL playlist on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'll be back on Sunday. There's going to be 2 shows. We'll have a Seahawks squad show immediately after the final whistle at Lumen Field, and then I will have my typical Locked On Seahawks post-game show a few hours after the game concludes. So plenty of action coming on Locked On Seahawks. So make sure to listen and enjoy the season opener. And here's to a victory, hopefully a victory. Go Hawks.